But Ivan, why don't you go ahead, tell our guests a little bit about yourself and what got you into esports in the first place.
Let's go. So, well, me myself, 14 years ago, I went to the US to study, and with a tennis scholarship because I used to play competitively. What is EAFC now, FIFA before, but there wasn't any collegiate league or whatever. So I went for tennis, did my 4 years there, and then went back to Spain and worked for an agency and did years in athletic recruitment, so sending athletes to US universities. And when I was seeing that the collegiate scene was gaining some traction, I decided to go all in on Esportian, and yeah, that's how I got into esports. So I used to be like a gamer competitively. Kind of, I left it aside. Just I never thought it would be a tool, that I could utilize to get maybe some scholarships for my study or for enjoy my experience, in the university with an esports program, in an esports club, even, it doesn't always have to be competitively. So yeah, that's how I got into esports, and well, I also manage Esportian, but I'm also a university teacher in Barcelona, and yeah, I I do both things. So now I'm more relieved because, as I was mentioning before, the university classes have finished, so I can focus more in sports
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I know. Doing multiple jobs. I feel like these days we all wear, so multiple hats and whatnot. What you mentioned FIFA or EAFC now. Do we know is FIFA still trying to create their own version?
Honestly, I'm not a lot into that because the collegiate scene in AFC is kind of, we're focusing on more video games.
Yeah, yeah,
I just played the all FIFA games with my friends and family, but apart from that, I'm not very into FIFA. I'm more into more video games, into other
yeah.
video games that me myself I don't play, but I have to learn all the specifics in order
I
to do the
know.
recruitment. So
Yeah, and that
sometimes,
that takes a lot of work, man. Ooh, there's a lot of
yeah,
games.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Do you notice from with a lot of the students you work with and things, do they have is there a game that is the most popular?
Yeah, so this current year, we've worked with a lot of gamers in Rocket League, and also esports players like in the RLCS. We've worked with 6 international students that are in pro as well, and then with a bunch of gamers and League of Legends quite a bit, Smash Bros as well, and Valorant. And in the fighting game scene, we're also we work with a few international students and domestic students as well, and because it was getting some traction, and esports programs were
Yeah.
starting to want to recruit in fighting games, so we also went there and stuff. So I also had to learn a lot about fighting games, but thanks to our the first student that we signed was a Mexican. He was a student, and then we made him a student ambassador, and he opened the doors to more students and stuff.
Yeah, no,
That's what we
that's
do also with the ones in our webpage, our students ambassadors, and they're always there. If any student wants to talk to them, they're always open their Discord, the social media. So that's super nice of them.
yeah, no, definitely. And I think, that's something with esports it's currently a little bit different, right, than traditional sports and recruiting overall because there is such a, I guess, a diverse group to recruit from, right? I mean, any other traditional sport you have, yeah, you play that game. I mean, that's what you're playing, right? Esports, there's multiple game titles, multiple types of people that you can recruit, and even with the shoutcasting and production side of things, there's even more opportunity. So it takes a lot more work, a lot. There's a lot more to deal with. Um, what kind of got you? I know you mentioned, right, you came from traditional sports and things like that. What made you more interested in helping people find the right universities to go to or the right scholarships or to get them, to study in the United States? What kind of led to that goal?
Well, I lived the experience myself, so I wanted to know other students or at least to live the same experience. And then I I also was a gamer. I've also been a gamer, but like, of course, I focus more on tennis. But like, I also been a gamer, and like when I saw this, and like when I was talking to people about like collegiate esports in the US and Canada, they were saying like, "What? That exists?" Like, and and all this like it's like a passion that came true, and
Yeah.
but recruiting in esports is quite a bit more complex than in traditional sports. Let's say that way, yeah. But it's been it's been a learning curve, because usually in traditional sports, when we used to recruit, it was the let's say the coaches were like, okay, we need this kind of player that plays in this division, okay, that this position, we can, like, if he has this GPA and this level, it's this budget, and
Hmm.
in esports sometimes, it's 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 sometimes, like, there needs to be a better communication with the admissions department, I feel like sometimes
Yeah, in a
with
better
some programs, like
flow and yeah.
most programs that we work with, like most of it, like are very well prepared. But sometimes, like the same university that I used to place athletes,
Yeah.
in, in esports, like there's no, you know, there's a connection.
Hmm.
That's what I feel sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of that comes from that idea of like with traditional sports and coaches, they've gone through, they've studied sport management or their game, right, and they understand it, then they learn how to manage that whole side. In esports, of course, those degrees are out there now, but you don't really have. It'll take several years, right, for those people to graduate with those degrees to bring that knowledge back into the fold and really set up a lot of these structures and standards and create esports programs that, again, while esports is different, there's a certain structure that can be reflected from traditional sports, right? You can understand how they recruit and build systems and structures that are sustainable over the long
Mhm.
term. And we've seen that a lot with different types of esports recruiting. I mean, conferences have come and gone. Recruiting sites have come and gone, and um, but one thing that's on the traditional side, like all that has stayed there, and so I think esports is gonna will eventually get there, right? But there needs to be long term plans in place to build some of that recruiting structure. And a lot of coaches don't even, I mean, they don't even know maybe that there's an international admissions team at their university, or
Mhm.
aren't plugged into the right networks. And honestly, that's kind of a good segue, right? I'll go ahead and share this deck here. We'll go back to the start of it. Um, and what the um, players and things. Oh, that is frozen on there. That's hilarious. All right. So we're eventually going to get back to how this fully functions. Let me reload that in and we'll keep talking. See if that comes back
Okay.
in.
Well,
There we go.
yeah,
Right,
like,
right back.
yeah, yeah.
No, go ahead. Finish that thought for us real quick, and then we'll hop in.
No, like what you were saying, like first, like for recruitment, like programs, of course, need to recruit students, and by having a large population of students, then they can focus on other stuff like international recruitment. But first is the on campus, okay, then is the out of campus, then it's the out of state, and then it's international recruitment. But yeah, I get, and as we were talking, like some universities, like those small private universities, that 90%, I don't know the exact percentage, but like 80 or 90% of their student population are athletes. They
Yeah.
also want to go to esports and and replicate the same system. It's how they get students. Uh, for D1 schools, the D1 schools that I talk to are like so funded, and have
Right.
an amazing system, but like they can recruit on campus with more ease, and yeah, there's more. But yeah, every university for now, it's well, as you know, some programs are in student life, some are in media department, some are in
Right.
athletics. There's no right or wrong of how to do things. It's just all of us working together, and year by year, building a more solid system that works for every university, I guess. And yeah.
No, I'd agree. Right, and that's as a whole, right? That's a lot of good input and in understanding too, right? This difference between in traditional sports we have D1, D2, and D3. In esports, typically when I would use those terms, kind of like you just said, I'll use them, in the traditional sense. This is a big university with D1 programs, even for esports, and they don't often have to recruit, right? They get to go after a lot of the best players because they're funded, and um, their jobs don't necessarily depend on the number of students coming into the program, that they have recruited. They get to recruit from campus, and there's other funding opportunities, and they understand a lot more of the grant system and technology on that side. Whereas programs like what I was doing, right? I'm the only staff member and I'm doing every bit of it, which gave me a lot more insight, I think, into how a
Mhm.
lot of the different aspects work and how they work together. But it's hard because that coach at a D3 school has to recruit, or else they don't have a job. And you said it, they're directly like, the schools need those students, and they see esports, right, as another option to recruit. Because we did, I think, most of, I mean, it was probably about 80% of students on campus were athletes of some kind or another. So there's a lot. And Kathy just asked the question too, right? Do you think, Ivan, that there are more scholarships lumped in with traditional sports rather than showing a trend towards esports at this point, as not only a singular sport but a STEM building and student retention in college, right?
Can you, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so Kathy's kind of asking, are there
Mhm.
more scholarships that are lumped in with traditional sports rather than just, a scholarship for esport as the sport itself? And I know a lot of scholarships tend to come from STEM grants, or, they're under a game design program, so
Mhm.
they get their
Yeah.
scholarships that way. Do you see a trend towards offering more scholarships, just maybe on the sport or athletic front for esports?
I mean, most esports scholarships is another financial aid,
Hmm.
opportunity. Like programs either get it from basically from organizations they partner, like the tech companies or like gaming companies, and
Yeah.
well, depending on how much the university administration also, believes or wants to invest in esports, they also get X amount, but that X amount mainly depends, on like how many students you you can get. So, for example, in traditional sports, we were like six players, on like high scholarships because it's six players that play in tennis, okay, against other
Sure.
universities. But then you had other 12 students, that were paying like 80% or 60% of the whole cost, and that's how you could get to do the numbers, on like, okay, I
Hmm.
can get two full rides, and for 90% or 80% scholarship, and the rest go down. So it it's a thing of numbers, basically,
Yeah, and I think I was lucky in what I did. I hosted both my programs under athletics and got them to give me scholarships right away. But I this would have been, when I first started back the 2017-18 year, we did our first initial program. I got scholarships approved kind of the next year, but I got like a $20,000 pot of money, and then I could divvy that
hmm
out, as I saw fit with scholarships. So balancing between making, giving enough people scholarships and giving people enough of a bigger scholarship to really attend, and it's a balancing act, that's for sure.
yeah. But like esport has it like very well. Like they some programs, have the like the club, the JV, and the varsity. Of course, it's a matter of volume and infrastructure, because
Yeah.
some programs are having like, just as a small place, to and they can have X amount of students, and the students have to rotate. So it depends also on like the infrastructure that that the university has. But yeah, I mean, the way to go. I mean, no, what I was saying, it depends on the objectives of the university. You either start with a varsity team, or you start from the foundation, building a community, and then a competitive team is just a plus, but it's not going to make the huge difference. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's the university administration. We have to adapt to whatever the university can offer the
Yeah.
students, and then we connect our students, international or domestic, with programs, that fit their academic profile, competitive profile, or if they want to, being event management or broadcasting, and then her requirements, like the degree they want to study. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense, and I think that's it's good, right? Because there are, with esports, and because there's no set standard of how programs operate, right? There are in traditional sports, it's multi-tiered on the recruiting front, but even more so in esports and how it operates. And so, right, we kind of talked about this a little, obviously, before we jumped on, but like local recruiting and then regional, national, and then international, it's not this one size fits all type of recruiting. You really have to be flexible in how you do it, and understand what ways there are out there to connect and how to do it, especially if you are a smaller program that needs those recruits. um, and right, I mean, there's multiple games and all this, multiple positions per game, so there are so many just unique factors that traditional sports don't have to deal with anymore, because they've built out a lot of that structure, and also they play one game even though they have multiple team members, and we're playing a lot of different games. But number one, right, starting local, we kind of touched on this, but you can walk down the street next to your university campus, and the vast majority of people don't know what esports is or know that you even have an esports program. Like, you have to build awareness, and and understand that. And we kind of talked about that last month, in building locally, building that awareness about your college, your esports team, and what that really is, educating people on what esports is and how it relates to education in college, in careers, because they don't know and they need to know it, right? Esports is number one, it's not mainstream. We live in this kind of bubble where it's not mainstream. Maybe once we get it into the Olympics, right? Hopefully sooner rather than later. But once we get it up to that stage, then the world will go, what's this esports thing? And all these parents will start watching and they'll understand, and it'll make it mainstream. But even on that note, right? Not all high schools have esports yet. I mean, do Ivan, and students you deal with, do a lot of them come from esports teams themselves, or are they just good competitive gamers and want to go to college?
Most of them are gamers, so they come from school, from but internationally, like
Yeah.
there's no like like the high school leagues internationally are like non-existent. There is one in Spain, and in the other countries there's a few, but like there's not a big culture like in the US. So like
Yeah.
it's more and more like people, especially more esport players, like him, are still, you have to like very educate the parents, on like what universities have esport programs, what an esport program is, and everything. What their kid is not just going to be there playing video games and not
Right.
going to class. But yeah, there needs to be a lot of education, and esport players themselves are knowing more about the collegiate scene, and all the opportunities. Like, because now, like the top competitive teams uh, in the collegiate scene in the US, and in Canada as well, but like in the US are more in the like semi-professional. Like
Yeah.
it's like a good solid, like, okay, I can still compete at a high level and get a university degree. It's not that so I don't have to give up competition or studies to do one or the other. That I
Right.
can do both, because so like I see like the collegiate scene, for those universities that want to go hard on competition, they're a good alternative for the esport players, to motivate them to get an education. And we've had a lot, like we've had a more than 10 students, like we did the
Yeah.
GED with them, because they quit high school,
Hmm.
especially those Rocket League players, they quit high school because from a young age, you have to dedicate. And then they were like, okay, this is not what I was, thinking when and they're 19, 20, and we're
Yeah.
like, okay, let's do the GED, okay, and then we do the TOEFL SAT, and then we can go to university.
Yeah. Right. I think that's fair. And this
You know,
whole, oh, there we
or
go.
Pennsylvania, like esport programs. So they were even people from the like students from the US are not informed about that the university that is 2 hours from there or 1 hour from there have an esport program that falls under athletics or under some department, and there's this amazing opportunities where they can develop their skills. So yeah.
Yeah, right. And that education is, it's so crucial. Just that having that information about what exists. And there, I think what a lot of coaches, maybe don't understand now too. And there's a lot of restrictions on the traditional side that don't exist yet for esports. So like taking advantage of this,
Yeah.
especially to help these high schools build esports programs, is, I mean, is mind blowing as far as sports is concerned, right? I mean, with like the NCAA, right? Those coaches can only talk to recruits at certain times of the year, and there's a lot of regulation involved in that. And you can't help a high school start a basketball team or a tennis team, but in esports we
Hmm.
can. And so I tell people all the time, you need to take advantage of this right now. And kind of on point one here, find a group of those high schools, whether they have an esports team or not. Maybe you help them build those programs and talk them through that, but create those local feeder schools that you can rely on year after year, to bring you esports players, because that's so crucial. And if you don't make your institution kind of this centerpiece of your local recruiting scene for that, those kids are going to go elsewhere, and you're just losing out on students right down the street.
Yeah, and also keeping up with the video games, because like for example, in the collegiate scene, League of Legends, it's not that easy for programs to recruit in League of Legends anymore.
Nope.
Or Dota 2, or CS:GO. Like we've sent a bunch of Nordics, but
Hmm.
that's about it. In the like it's a shooting game. It's very delicate in the US, and League of Legends, like young kids, don't want to spend
Yeah.
the time in learning everything,
It's too
like
long.
and tennis and soccer, there's minor rules that may change every X amount of years, but the game is the
Yep.
game, but video games is
Yep.
just
Yeah. There's not
more.
patch notes every month for tennis, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to make it more difficult, and change stuff. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, let's see. What new video games start to emerge. In the community, like which ones stay, and yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's just a whole nother level onto that. And with that too, so a lot of coaches, we talk about, building this awareness in your local area and things, but also building it in a way that like lets people know what makes your university unique. And on the game front, right, this was, I mean, a mistake I've made, a lot of coaches have made, is spreading ourselves too thin and trying to recruit for too many game titles at the same time, right? And understanding that, hey, like, look at the student population on your campus, and understand what games they like to play and what games those students,
I'm a questioner,
you could recruit for, right?
So yeah, so what your students want, and from there build. Yeah,
Because
that's
I mean,
everyone.
yeah, there's too many games out there, and then recruit for those games. And then as you recruit players, you can, talk to these high schools. You can tell them, hey, this is what makes our program unique. We focus on these set games, and we're very competitive in these games, because we haven't spread ourselves too thin. And your program in general, right? What do you focus on? Do you focus on building, better team dynamics than other programs? Do you focus on helping students with self-assessment skills? Like, create something that's unique in your offering, to help you on that recruiting front. And I think that'll really help out, down the road,
Yeah, some
right?
of our students chose a program because they had, they focused a lot on content creation, and they offered students like a lot of content creation like material, and like the program had director knew a lot about it, and really connected with the student, and the student could have went to a better competitive program
Yeah.
with the academics were the same, but like he chose like the so like it's just finding, like the strengths of your program, and like really marketing that, and differentiate in that. You don't have to be the best competitive team to
Yeah.
like differentiate. Yeah, in the
Nope, and
collegiate
especially,
scene.
right, at those small schools. I was at the D3 level. Like, look, I know at the D3 level, even in traditional sports, esports, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not necessarily fielding the top players of all time at the D3 level. And so you have to come up with, right, what makes your program more unique, and what are you offering, and why should a player come there? So yeah, there's just there's a lot of unique needs, and kind of niches that you can focus on, I think, And it's finding that out. And again, if you need help, by all means, let us know, and we'll work with you through that. Apparently, Ivan, St. Mary's Esports, they need students, so
In
they
Texas or where?
they commented right in the on the feed. They just said from California, they need
I'm from
students.
California. Okay, okay. I got confused.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a few
I know it's
St.
St.
Marys
Mary's.
around here. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
okay, okay. Uh, I
you know,
I want to connect and and know what they offer and how we can connect them with students. So yeah, so amazing.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So, and we'll have a slide at the end, and you'll get the slide deck too if you want it. Anybody can ask me for this,
Yeah,
and I'll have that information. But on that, right, developing those relationships too with those local schools. And I tell people all the time, look, if a high school doesn't have an esports program, or even if they do, there's bound to be gamers that aren't a part of that program as well. And it's your best resource is just guidance counselors. Guidance counselors are the best at the high school level. They talk with the students, they understand their needs. They're gonna know right off the top of their head. They can probably think of like 5 to 10 students who be like, "Oh yeah, they talk to me about this video game all the time." Like you should definitely reach out to them, or set up meetings, and
yeah.
but you have to develop relationships not just with the students, right, but with the staff at those schools, so that when a student asks them, "Hey, what colleges or universities should I go to for esports if I'm interested?" The first thing that pops to the top of their head is you, right?
hmm Yeah. Also, another thing that move from the University of Oklahoma did, that he convinced the university to, like, when they are applying, put like a section of like, are you interested in gaming and stuff like that, and like he got like a lot of students to know,
Yes.
and he recruited a lot of it with just that simple step,
Yeah,
when they
put
were
it on the
applying to
application.
put that bug, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah,
No,
that's
no, I
another
get
thing.
that. And honestly, that was a harder step than I felt like it should be at a university, to get the application itself updated just to add esports as an offering so students could click it. I mean, it took months to get that added. And it just, I don't know, the things you don't know until you know. But it, it just blew my mind a little bit. And after you get that added, that's a big benefit, right? Especially as regional, national recruiting, and international recruiting, people can click on the application, see that esports is offered. But that's a good segue here into, like, look, you have to talk with your admissions team. We are not
Yeah.
the biggest mistake you can do is try to do it yourself. Talk to admissions. They know your regions, they know where they get a lot of students from. Maybe they even know, hey, this student always talks to me about video games, you should reach out to them about esports. I mean, they're so knowledgeable, and we don't take
Yeah,
advantage.
and they go with much more confidence to a meeting with a student to potentially recruit. Those 10% of universities that already have the information laid down because they did the homework with the admissions department, and can tell a student in a meeting based on your profile, okay, that each person provided us, we can do this and this and this, and you can fit
Mm,
within this budget. Or averagely, first they have to apply for the scholarships to apply, but like, uh, talking to the students and the families, we're always there, but like we can see that the esport directors or the assistant directors that know their information and can be
yeah.
very strict with like, what this is your budget, this is what we can offer you and stuff, instead of like, yeah, just if you liked it, great, just fill in this application, and when you finish the application, we'll see what we can do. And yeah, like, it's a big difference,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for knowing your material and understanding more about your university than just your esports program as a director or a coach. And uh
Mhm.
if you're gonna recruit, you just have to know more about it. And a lot of coaches I know too, right, they go straight for just recruiting websites, and don't put in a lot of groundwork. And on a lot of these, I noticed that, like, look, that's where you're going to get a lot of your maybe high tier players overall, because they're putting their names out there like that. But there's, again, not all these players are on these sites, and some of these sites disappear, and some of them stay around. But by and large, you can't expect to recruit all of your kids from like one website.
Yeah, and also, yeah, also you can contact them, and then they just like, it's key. It's also like a hassle to catch up with those students. Are they connected to the platform? Are they gonna showing to the meeting. Like we make sure they show up with the meetings, with the family or without the family, but they show up with to the meeting with the coach, and they do the meeting, and then we usually set a timeline to when they have to decide, so it just don't leave
Yeah.
the director or the coach hanging, and yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and I think one of the stronger connections we can always make too is with these alumni network, and you mentioned, right, leaving a coach hanging. And I think if coaches or directors were able to tap into their alumni offices, understand that even though esports alumni are rare, and again because it's not that old, so like it's going to take 20 years before you have esports alumni that can donate back to your programs a lot and do these different things. But there are game design alumni, there are technology IT people, like all this stuff that would love to help with esports, and they might know students or people, whether it's in their families or friends that want to go to college for esports, and those tend to be a lot stronger connections, and like we need to
Yeah.
leverage those types of relationships.
There's always this crazy gamer that can donate money to your program. You just don't know. You have to
Just
find
don't
him
know it. So,
or
right, yeah, talk to admissions and talk to your alumni office on campus, and
yeah.
use that to help your programs out a lot, because I mean it will. And once you kind of narrow down and or really cement your structures for local recruiting, regional and national recruiting, right? Obviously, filling spots on your roster, especially in the international stage, is a big part of that. My best Rainbow Six player was from Spain. Um, so he was phenomenal at it, and he really got excited. He was excited to study in the United States and be on an esports team at a college. And
Mhm.
so connecting with those students, and number one, right, does your college or university have an international admissions team? Because if they do, you need to reach out to them, because there are a lot of requirements that are different from the domestic side, and the money, even scholarships. Because when I was recruiting, I couldn't give an international student a direct scholarship, but the international admissions team was like, yeah, we'll make sure they're covered for coming here to play esports, even though it wasn't directly out of my scholarship money.
Yeah, yeah. You did a great job there because like Siege players in Spain, it's not a very big scene, So like you did,
Yeah,
like
I
all the
got I
Siege
got one of
players
the
we
few
got were
ones.
from the
Yeah.
US.
No, that's
Yeah.
funny. He was good, and right. So these students, they get different funding. They'll play different games, right, from what you might be used to seeing. But filling those spots can, I mean, they're really good at some of those games that they do play that we don't play. So you could even put a whole squad of international students together for select titles, because you may not be able to find domestic students that want to do that. And on that note, Ivan, because right, the journey for an international student to get here, to get to a university, is a lot different. You mentioned kind of the GED route a little bit, but what kind of steps does that student even have to go through that coaches might need to know about, on their end, to know, hey, I need to recruit this student, maybe in the
Yeah.
fall, because they have to get all the paperwork filled out so that they can get their visas and come here, right? So what does that process kind of look like?
Well, before they even know about the student, because we connect them with them, they have to, well, first of all, like some students, we start 2 years before they go to university, some students 6 months. It depends on the need to the GD, what is their level of English, how much do we have to prepare them, for them to take
Yeah.
the Duolingo or the TOEFL exam. So they have to do the Duolingo or TOEFL exam, some take the SAT as well. Since the pandemic, it's like, when I went to the US, both TOEFL and SAT was a requirement. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
either TOEFL or SAT or just Duolingo, like more universities.
Yeah.
Then we do the placement. Okay, we offer them, like X amount of offers that fit their academic profile, competitive profile of what they want to do in this program. Okay, their budgets. Okay, and also the requirements, what part of the US they want to go, size of university, okay, what degree they want to study, all these requirements, okay.
Yeah.
And then once they selected a university, they verbally committed to a university, with start the admissions process to that university. Okay, once they are admitted, the university can give them the I-20, and the I-20 with this document, they can go to the U.S. embassy in their home country, where they can have the interview, and then they stamp them the F1 student visa, which is the visa they need to go to study
Okay.
abroad. Yeah, so that will be the process for international students.
Right. Now, how long can that process take for them?
2 years to 6 months, depending on the level of English and do they have the equivalent of a high school degree in their country or not. You know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, bottom line, if you're an esports coach and you want to recruit an international student, don't do it the summer before you need them. That's not gonna work. Right. There's a long journey and a process they have to go through. And it's best, right? Because you also don't want to stress those students out. So you want to make sure they have enough time to get all the paperwork done. That in a way
You
that
don't have
works
to
for them.
stress them, but you have to be on top of them
Yes,
because we have
very
like
much
very
so.
clear
Yeah.
guidelines before we have the intro call. You know, like we're like, okay, this is the government, these are the guidelines, okay, and by contract, okay, you sign that you have to put this documentation in before this and that, okay, like we make them also like be like responsible for their actions and stuff
Yeah.
when they sign something. You know, like it's not like oh yeah, you know, like there's parts of the process where we do it for them. There's parts of the process where we work with them, and there's parts of the process that they have to do by themselves, and it's all very clear, like structured. So the student,
Yeah.
before they sign anything, you know, with the family, uh, knows what they're getting into. Because yeah, because we have 100% placement rate, and we don't want to, you know, we don't want
Right.
any casualties, so we make them sign a contract, you know, that if you don't pass your English exams or if you lack on like submitting X documentation on time, you know, it's your fault, like we reminded you a lot of the time,
Yeah.
you know.
No, that's big, right? And yeah, Kathy, you said we need to spread the word by their sophomore year in high school, and then honestly, that's true. That's when a lot of them start looking at what universities they want to go to and how that might work. But yeah, on the international stage, there's yeah all that stuff to go through, and I mean I remember right even as a we had the international admissions team, and they would handle a lot of that back and forth, but there would be sometimes that a student did, they didn't get the latest update, or like the admissions team sometimes will drop the ball on that kid. And so as a coach, don't also just assume that like everybody's going to take care of it for you. You do still have to keep up with those students, and right, and remind them, and make sure for your own sake that they're getting their stuff filled out. And I mean, part of that is just
Or talk
building
to
that
us
relationship.
and we'll do it for
Yeah,
you.
there you go. There you go. So obviously, Ivan's a great resource when it comes to that. And when I was first doing some of this with international students, it would have been before you guys really started, I think. And
Mhm.
and so one of the ways I leveraged too was a lot with the athletic teams. They had right on the traditional sports side, they were recruiting internationally, and so you would tap into that pipeline, and those agencies would also then try to find kids that, oh, they may not have made the cut for the soccer team or this and that, but they'd still like to study over here, and they play video games. And there's a lot that you can leverage with that.
Mhm.
Oh, and Tom is asking, right, is the F1 visa easy to get for those students, or is it just a matter of the paperwork?
Depending on the country, depending on the country and how well they get along with Uncle Sam, you know.
Right.
We've been we've been, you know, like we've worked with students in the Middle East, and they've applied for the third time this, you know, like it's not that
Yeah.
easy, but like Europeans, you know, or like South Americans, depending on the country. Venezuela very difficult, you know, but like other Central South American countries, not a problem. So it really depends on the relationships that that country has with the US. Yeah, there's sometimes
Yeah.
by contract we say, you know, that we'll do everything, you know, but like there's certain forces that we cannot, you know, guarantee. But yeah, the F1 visa depends on the country, you know, and the family history of that student. That's something that you cannot control, you know. If the family
Yeah.
is in something weird, they will know, the US embassy will know, and won't give the visa, you know. If in the meeting the student is like when they ask them questions and the student, you know, says something weird, you know, like we also guide the students on like these are the typical questions that they will ask you in the US embassy, okay, and this is usually like how to answer them, okay, because if not they get very nervous or whatever, you know, like it's not like it's not very complicated to get the F1 visa. You just go there and answer the questions like normally. But some students, get very nervous, or some students have family, or like they're in a country that is very difficult to get a F1 visa. Yeah, there's a lot of also like uh, you know things to consider. Like it's not that easy, but for Europeans, yeah, not a problem.
No, it made me think too. Where I was at Greenville University, right? You're talking about even with the TOEFL tests or things like that. We and so check if your university is going to have something like this. But we had a um, I guess it would have been like attached to the university, but it was like your university like first year kind of experience type stuff. But they would actually take like if students from international countries, China was a big feeder for that program, but they would come here and they would actually work on their English, take the test, and then they would get to come into the university. So they might be here for 2 years, tied to the university in a sense, right? But then get to take their English courses, learn it, take the test, and then go to actual university. So a lot of schools might have that, and
No.
it's an easy way to get students over here to start with.
Not all universities have ESL programs, that are
Yeah,
intensive of English. But yeah, in my university I went to, like, there was like one Colombian in the tennis team that he just, did 6 months of ESL intensive, and then he was upped, to the TOEFL and
yeah,
be like take all his courses, but he was able to come to the US and play for a team.
yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, not all universities are going to have them, but check to see if yours does for sure.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, honestly, on that note, we'll kind of go here. Is there anything, that you want to tell our audience here about your brand and how, I mean, the best way to get in touch with you guys, or when they should start this kind of process, or anything you just want them to know about the international, recruiting scene?
Yeah, honestly, depending, it's very dependent on every student. Like, every student is a case, and yeah, we focus on their academic standing, on their budget standing, and esports standing, and we always make sure that we can work with them. So with most students we cannot work, but with the ones that we can work, like, we start working. Also, I don't know what else to add, honestly, BJ.
Yeah,
You got
yeah.
me here.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, no worries. I mean, for coaches, right? So you guys handle a lot of the process overall as far as recruiting, getting the paperwork and things. What kind of role should the coaches or directors expect when working with you? Like, what would they need to do?
I mean, the ideal scenario, like those 10% schools do, is they already know the budget that is given to them. They know what to destine for recruiting. Okay, and basically they are very specific in, like, I need, I my recruiting needs are in this video game. Okay, I this GPA, I need it. Okay, I need this kind of level of player. Okay, and this is the budget I can. Because, like, sometimes for domestic students, it isn't a huge issue, because they have
Yeah,
another mentality. Okay, when it comes to university and the cost. But for international, it's like, how much do I have to pay? Because, like, internationals, if they don't have the money, they will not pay for education. And US
hmm,
students will, like, get loans and stuff. It's the most normal thing to do.
yeah, we will.
International students don't have the mentality. So it's like, don't tell me, like, you can get me 10,000 in academic scholarship if he has a 4.0, or like 3K in scholarship. Like, no, just like, I know what the university costs, but, like, what is the budget? The
Yeah.
housing for tuition. How much do I have to pay in that?
Hmm.
And if they're more specific in those three things, more in the budget, more than like saying, like, yeah, we can get you this amount of scholarship and this amount of scholarship, because
Yeah.
we need to communicate very transparently and very careful with the families, because it's a
Yeah.
life-changing
That's true.
process. Like, we are connecting the students, with universities that we think, that they will fit in, and, like, the parents are, like, very expecting, like, we have a clear process for them to
Yeah.
to know what to expect in every step of the process. But like still, they're like when we say we have to apply to these three universities because the director said like fill in the application process, and from there we can see. That gets them in their nerves, and
Yeah.
us, yes, we just have to do it instead of like, this university is this and this and this. Okay, based on your, your academic objective or competitive objective or whatever, or the degree you want to study, like you have these three offers, like we can talk about it, but like the information is clear. It's not like, okay, we have to do the application process, the admission process, we have to get accepted, and then we can see, like it's the more straightforward the process, the better for the families and for us. But yeah,
Sure. No, that
yeah,
makes sense. We had a couple questions come in right there. I guess they're kind of related to one another in a sense, but for you guys, Ivan, is the client the student? Does the school have to do anything, or or does the school pay a fee to you guys for any recruiting as far as that goes?
yeah, depending on the school. But yeah, the client is a student and the family. Yeah, because most esports programs don't have the budget to,
Oh,
you know,
that's fair. Yeah, and
to
you
pay
you
us.
mentioned doing some domestic students now. Is that any different in your approach?
No, uh, they pay for our service.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah,
well, that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
we wanted, we were the first years we were going through a bit like defining our business model, because in traditional
Mhm.
sports, the family and the client always pay, like
Yeah.
domestic or international. We wanted, the universities to pay, but it's not that this concept is beautiful, in as a theory, but in real life,
Right.
yeah, no, so like yeah, we make, like that's how we get better, improve processes better, it's the family that pays a fee to make it happen, both domestic and international.
Yep. No, yeah, it'd be like, right, if you're curious, right, any like if you use like Stay Plugged In, or on the traditional side, if your kids have used like Huddle or Be Recruited, like they're all paying, right, no matter what they're doing online to try to get noticed by you guys. And so that's why, Ivan, I think it's good, right? You mentioned like we want to make sure these people are taken care of, that the process is clear to them, and that we make sure that they stay on top of it, because right, they are paying, and that's an important factor of that, right?
Yeah, they're paying for results, and we have to be, we always have to go the extra mile, and that's how we get better. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that's basically it.
There you go. Well, awesome. Thank you for all that information, definitely, Ivan. And if you guys have any questions for him, I mean, you can reach him on LinkedIn, by email, whatever you need, and we'll go ahead and do the shout out here with Serendipity Gaming. So if you need any facility design, arena design, help with grant writing, management consulting, anything basically to do with your esports program that you need, we'll help you deal with. And we've got custom shoutcasting desks that are really cool. So if you're interested in any of those, please let us know. But any questions about anything, here's our information that you can reach us. And of course, we're proud partners with the NECC. So we want to make sure that the coaches in the NECC are taken care of, and that you guys have resources and things that you need as well. So any questions, please reach out to us. But thank you for kind of joining everybody. And oh, Kathy had one more. Oh, there's one more question that this might be an easy answer. Do you take students from the U.S. to go study in other countries?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
Yeah.
We want to be we want to focus. I've always sent students to US and Canada in traditional sports. When it switches to esports, the same thing. There's a lot of work still to be done, and a lot of market. Like if, as you mentioned, BJ, if you want to spread thin, you'll never accomplish something great.
Right.
So
Right.
our focus is very clear. Work with domestic, international students, and they all end up in the US or Canada.
There you go. All right. Well, there's the answer. Ivan, I appreciate your time as always. It's good to talk with you. I think there's a lot of good information here. Again, if anybody has any questions, please reach out to us. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next month.
I appreciate your time, BJ. And thanks, Kathy, for all those questions.
There you go. All right. We'll see you guys next time.